Good evening. You're watching ARIRANG News at 8. It's Wednesday, February 19 here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Jin-joo filling in for Yoo Ji-hye. The Islamist militant group responsible for Sunday's bus bombing in northeastern Egypt that killed 4 people, including 3 Koreans, has warned all tourists to leave the Sinai Peninsula by Thursday or risk being subject to further attacks. The first group of 15 Korean survivors returned home Wednesday evening. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The Egyptian government says it is doing all it can to protect tourists in the wake of a threat by an al-Qaeda-linked Islamist militant group for all tourists to leave the country by Thursday or be subject to further attacks. The government said it is not sure of the authenticity of the threat posted on a Twitter account affiliated with the group, but said it has taken extra precautions. Egyptian Prime Minister Hassan al-Bolkiah said on state television that the group Ansar Beit al-Maqdis is becoming a threat to foreign tourists in the country. The Islamist group claims to be responsible for the suicide attack on Sunday that killed 4 people, including 3 Koreans and an Egyptian. The Korean government has issued a travel warning for the Sinai Peninsula and is working to find out whether there are still any Korean tourists in the region. The Korean Foreign Ministry says it is doing all it can to uncover the motive for the attack.
We are working with the Egyptian government and the international community to learn the reasons behind the attack.
Korean government officials dispatched to the scene after the attack are currently working to help the Koreans who survived the attack and ensure they get home safely. The first group of 15 survivors arrived in Korea on Wednesday, while the other half are scheduled to return home on Thursday. As for the 3 Korean nationals who died, their families are currently in Egypt and will return to Korea with their bodies soon. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
The families of 8 victims who died in Monday's horrifying building collapse in Korea's southeastern city of Gyeongju have come to a compensation agreement with the builder of the resort. The agreement between Kowloon Group and the families of 8 of the 9 dead students came Wednesday at a funeral hall in Ulsan. Some 560 freshmen from the Busan University of Foreign Studies were taking part in an orientation event in an auditorium at a resort hotel in Gyeongju when the incident occurred. A total of 10 people died and more than 100 were injured. Although authorities say heavy snowfall may have contributed to the collapse, investigators are looking into the possibility that poor construction played a bigger role. Fresh on the heels of the scathing United Nations report about the human rights situation in North Korea, the South Korean Parliamentary Committee in charge of Foreign Affairs met Wednesday to discuss pending bills over the matter. But as our Kim Hyun-gil reports, lawmakers of the rival parties had different ideas about how they should proceed.
Lawmakers from the ruling Missionary Party and the main opposition Democratic Party showed clear differences over pending North Korean human rights bills at Wednesday's Foreign Affairs and Unification Committee. The Missionary Party's floor leader Choi Kyung-hwan said passage should come sooner rather than later.
The North Korean human rights bill should be passed as soon as possible. The UN has already urged North Korea to stop violating people's rights and for China to stop the repatriation of North Korean refugees. We should be the ones at the forefront.
The 2 parties have each submitted 5 bills since 2005, calling for measures that would improve the lives of the North Korean people. The Missionary Party's proposals have mainly called for documenting the human rights situation in North Korea, supporting human rights activities, and helping groups that aid North Korean defectors. The DP's proposals have focused more on supporting cooperation between the South and North and providing humanitarian aid. While Democratic Party lawmaker Chung Chung-rae welcomed the discussions on the bills, he said the timing was inappropriate.
Both parties should go ahead and talk about the pending bills, but legislating them may affect North Korea's attitude towards South Korea, especially at a time when we are going ahead with the family reunions, and relations with North Korea are improving.
Political analysts say the opposition party's stance reflects concerns that a hardline approach to the North Korean human rights situation could anger Pyongyang and worsen relations. Although the parliamentary committee lawmakers did not agree on legislating the bills just yet, they did agree to proceed with fine-tuning them. The US and Japan adopted legislation on the North Korean human rights situation in 2004 and 2006, respectively. 김영길, ARIRANG News.
The White House has reiterated its condemnation of the human rights violations in North Korea in light of a new report by a UN panel. In a press briefing Tuesday, White House Press Secretary Connie said the U.S. is extremely vocal and critical about the appalling conduct of the regime. The latest UN inquiry report on the human rights situation in the North defined the abuses there as crimes against humanity. In contrast to the U.S. reaction, China, Pyongyang's closest ally, said the UN's criticisms were unreasonable. The Chinese Foreign Ministry also denied claims Beijing may be abetting Pyongyang by forcibly repatriating North Koreans trying to flee their country, saying they're considered illegal migrants. North Korea has detained yet another foreigner, this time an Australian missionary. 75-year-old John Short's wife told Reuters that he was arrested by Pyongyang's Public Security Bureau on Sunday. Short was reportedly questioned about handing out religious pamphlets printed in Korean. Australia, which does not have diplomatic relations with North Korea, is using its embassy in Seoul and the Swedish embassy in Pyongyang to look into the case. Pyongyang has been holding Korean-American missionary Kenneth Bae in custody for more than a year now on charges he was trying to overthrow the North Korean regime.
Touch base with journalists, experts, and analysts who are taking the pulse of Asia's heartbeat.
South Korea's defense minister.
In a lively half hour, join ARIRANG's Yoo Ji-hye for the day's top stories, current affairs, business, technology trends, plus global weather forecasts and more. ARIRANG News. Every weeknight, live on ARIRANG TV.
With the housing market here in the nation sputtering along, the Land Ministry has some ideas about how to get it back on track and lay them out at the presidential office on this Wednesday. Kim Ji-yeon has the details.
During a policy briefing at the presidential office of Cheongwon on Wednesday, the Ministry of Land, Maritime and Environment called for revitalizing the housing market by easing restrictions. The pitch included a number of measures. Regarding the reconstruction of houses, the Land Ministry said there is a need to scale back on some of the policies imposed back in 2006 that were put into place to quell housing speculation. That could include abolishing a policy that requires homeowners to pay back some of the profits gained from rising house prices after renovations. Limiting a household to buying just one house in some areas of the Seoul metropolitan area would also no longer apply. The ministry also wants to ease the eligibility for government-backed mortgage loans to include more home buyers. First-time buyers are currently only eligible for loans that have interest rates in the 1% range. But with the change, those who have not owned a house for 5 years will be eligible as well. The ministry aims to make public rental housing available to 90,000 households this year and to 500,000 households by the year 2017. The set of measures is being introduced in part to counter soaring housing rental prices that have risen since 2008. The goal is to ease the imbalance between supply and demand in Cheonse, a rental system unique to Korea that requires one large lump sum deposit. The task of boosting the nation's faltering housing market has been a major issue for economic policymakers, as more than half of Korean households' assets are in real estate. And because of that, many fear that the ailing housing market could have a negative impact on the nation's consumption, which makes up a majority of the nation's gross domestic product. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Financial companies will come under stricter regulations when it comes to collecting personal information starting in April in the wake of last month's massive data leak. The nation's financial watchdogs are expected to announce comprehensive measures on the new set of rules next week. The reforms will focus on what financial firms can and cannot ask new clients when they fill out application forms. The companies will be limited from asking for resident registration numbers, either online or offline, and will have to enlarge the font size on their sheets to make them clearer to customers. New clients will also have to sign or grant approval to the financial firm when divulging their personal information. Korea's export-driven economy is still being driven by 6 industries, while growth in other sectors remains flat in recent years. Our Connie Lee reports.
Korean exports are still driven by the 6 industries that power the country's economy, while growth in other industries has remained stagnant. Local market researcher CEO Score said Wednesday the combined annual overseas sales of 133 companies from 2011 through the third quarter of 2013 was more than $421 billion. Of the total, 94% of the company's overseas sales came from Korea's 6 main export industries: IT and electronics, automobiles, construction, petrochemicals, shipbuilding, and steel. During the same period, however, the telecommunications, pharmaceutical, and transportation industries saw their overseas sales remain flat. CEO Score representative Park Ju-gun said the 6 major industries are crucial to the export-driven Korean economy and added that companies need to invest more to stay competitive.
Exports of IT products and automobiles are expected to continue to grow, while it may take the shipbuilding industry, which is especially highly dependent on global economic trends, more time to recover.
Samsung Group had the highest proportion of overseas sales, which represented more than 70% of its total sales from 2011 to 2013, followed by LG and Kumho Asiana. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
The deadliest day in Ukraine in 3 months of demonstrations against President Viktor Yanukovych didn't stop protesters from returning to the streets on Wednesday. They filled a central Kiev square prepared for further clashes with police. The Ukrainian Health Ministry says at least 25 people were killed Tuesday in the capital, 9 of them police officers, after authorities charged protesters using rubber bullets, smoke, and stun grenades. Tuesday's clashes began after the demonstrators attempted to march on Parliament demanding constitutional reform. South and North Korea will resume reunions for the peninsula's war-torn families on Thursday for the first time in more than 3 years. And on Wednesday, ahead of the landmark event, dozens of elderly South Koreans gathered near the inter-Korean border to ready themselves for a meeting they have been waiting for decades. Our Moon Gan-young reports from Sokcho.
83-year-old Chang Chun will meet his brother on Thursday for the first time in 63 years, a sibling he thought was dead until a few years ago. They'll reunite tomorrow for the first time since the Korean War tore apart their family.
This will be the first and the last time for me to meet my brother. 63 years have passed already. Considering how long I have to live, this will be my only chance.
He is one of the 82 elderly South Koreans who gathered in a resort near the eastern port city of Sokcho on Wednesday, one day before they'll be crossing the heavily fortified border only 50 kilometers away into North Korea. It will be the first reunion in more than 3 years for the peninsula's divided families. The South Korean Red Cross had initially arranged meetings for 83 South Koreans, but one had to bow out due to health problems. This has only highlighted the fact that time is running out for the peninsula's divided families, and the chief of the South Korean Red Cross is fully aware.
Originally, 83 separated family members were supposed to come, but one had health issues, so the total number now stands at 82. 26 of them are over the age of 90. It has been 3 years and 4 months since the last encounter with our northern delegates, and this will provide us the opportunity to meet face-to-face and share our opinions on a humanitarian basis.
Earlier in the day, the reunion participants went through health checkups conducted by the medical staff that will be traveling with them to North Korea and received a brief lecture on the do's and don'ts while meeting with their relatives in North Korea. At about 8 a.m. Thursday morning, the 82 South Koreans and their families will board a bus and leave for the cross-border transit office in Goseong, which is about an hour-and-a-half drive from here, and then cross into North Korea at 10 a.m. Korea time. The reunion set to begin at 3 in the afternoon will be bittersweet, as the chances of any of these divided family members meeting again
are slim, if not none. 문건영, 아리랑 뉴스 속초.
With just 5 days remaining until the curtain comes down on the Sochi Winter Olympics, more and more attention is being drawn to the next Winter Games, which will take place in the Korean resort town of Pyeongchang. For fans wanting to learn more about the next host city, there's a special place at Olympic Park to get a preview. Our Olympics correspondent Song Ji-san filed this report from Sochi.
The spirit of the Olympics is alive and well in Sochi. But just a few minutes after entering Olympic Park, you can also get a sense of what the 2018 Winter Games will be like.
The Pyeongchang House is just before the main competition venues at the Olympic Park. Athletes and sports fans can get a preview of what the Winter Olympics will look like at Korea's Alpine City less than 4 years from now.
From learning about Pyeongchang's location on the Korean peninsula and experiencing Korean medicine to watching cultural performances every day, visitors can get a better idea of the host city and the nation of the Pyeongchang Winter Olympic Games. The venue is especially popular among Russians who are curious about the city that will take the reins in 4 years.
I think that it will be good Olympic Games and maybe better than now. I hope that I will be in these Olympic Games in Pyeongchang.
And it's not too early to think about Pyeongchang. Athletes who have already wrapped up their games at Sochi are now setting their sights on Pyeongchang, and so are their families.
We're parents of an athlete at these games, and I'm very, very impressed. I mean, obviously, they're quite ready for the Olympics. There's no question about that.
After hitting the 100,000 visitor mark on Saturday, Pyeongchang House is rising as a must-see spot among Olympic fans.
Over 15,000 visitors drop by at the Pyeongchang House a day, meaning 1 out of 5 people in Olympic Park drop by. They get surprisingly interested after viewing the exhibition. And more than 500 Russians have already requested that they'd love to volunteer at the 2018 Pyeongchang Games.
Visitor number 201,800 to the Pyeongchang House, or 2018 with 2 zeros on the end, will win a free flight to and from the Games if the winner wants to volunteer at the 2018 Games. 송지선, 아리랑 뉴스, 소치.
Now, yesterday was an exciting night for Team Korea fans with another gold medal being added in the women's 3,000-meter relay. But tonight, there's a different kind of excitement with Ice Queen Kim Yuna set to perform later in the short program, where she'll be seeking to win back-to-back Olympic titles. For more on that and other stories, we now connect live to our Connie Lee in the newsroom. Connie, what are some of the highlights coming from Sochi?
Hey, Jin-joo. Well, we'll have to give it to the Dutch at this year's Olympics. They have been swooping up the medals like none other. Well, the Netherlands have the most number of Olympic medals right now at 20. Same goes for the U.S., but it's about the sweeps that they have been making, especially in speed skating. Now, let's head over to the latest sweep in the men's 10,000-meter race from Tuesday. Now, this race was a long one, 25 laps to be exact. But the Dutch seem to have no problem in claiming the podium spots. Jurrit Borgsma took the gold in a new Olympic record of 12 minutes, 44.45 seconds. Now his teammates Sven Kramer and Bob de Jong took the silver and bronze respectively. But let's not forget the 4th place winner, Korea's own Lee Sung-hoon. Unfortunately, the 25-year-old Lee could not defend his Olympic title from the 2010 Olympics, despite the high expectations from Korea. But 4th place isn't too bad. Now enough with the Dutch, let's now go to the slopes and talk about an American. At the first ski halfpipe event ever at an Olympic Games, this year at Sochi, we had American David Wise take home the gold medal. Now the 23-year-old Wise doing his tricks down the pipe, scored 92 points on his first run. Now the silver went to Canada and the bronze went to France. The ski halfpipe event became an official Winter X Games sport back in 2002, and then for the first time it was approved as an official sport at this year's Sochi Games. And just 4 hours from now, it'll all be about Kim Yuna. Yes, I'm talking about the Queen of Ice and Korea's own Olympic champion. Today at midnight, 23-year-old Kim Yuna will be performing for the first time at Sochi in the figure skating short program. Will she be able to defend her gold this year? She'll be performing 17th out of 30 contenders for today's program. Now, there's a lot of excitement and expectations for Kim, who is facing her newest rival, 15-year-old Yulia Limnitskaya from Russia. Now, this new Russian star is getting a lot of attention at Sochi. She already won the gold in the figure skating team event last week. You can see here, and eyes are set for her to get another medal in the ladies singles event. So at midnight today, Limnitskaya will be performing after Kim Yuna at 25th. And with that, let's go to the current medal standings at the Sochi Olympics. Germany remains at number 1 with 8 gold medals. Norway moved up some, claiming the number 2 spot, and then the Netherlands with 6 gold medals. The US and Russia then round out the top 5. Korea is in the top 20, standing at 15th place with 2 gold medals and a total of 4 Olympic medals. Now let's take a quick look at the upcoming schedule of the Games. That's all I have on the Sochi Olympics for now. Back to you, Jin-joo.
Okay, Connie, thanks for the wrap-up. We'll see you again at 10 p.m. Time now to check on the weather forecast with our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Bo-kyung, what does the weather have in store for us tomorrow at Mount Kumgang, where the family reunions will be held?
Well, Jin-joo, it doesn't look like the weather is going to cooperate. From tomorrow through Friday, Mount Kumgang is forecast to get 2 to 7 centimeters of snow. The snowfall will mostly be concentrated from tomorrow afternoon through Friday early morning, but Saturday is shaping up to be a sunny one. Taking a look at the current conditions, we're at the edge of a high-pressure system from China, which is why we're seeing cloudy skies across the map. Now, today is Usu, which is one of the 24 indicators marking the beginning of spring. This is appropriate because the East Coast regions finally got a snow-free day today. Now, as for tomorrow, in addition to Gangwon-do province, the Gyeongsangbuk-do province will get 1 to 5 centimeters of snow. Elsewhere, the nation will get to enjoy another mild winter day similar to today. Taking a look at tomorrow's readings, Seoul peaks at 6 degrees, meanwhile Gwangju and Busan hit 9 and 8 degrees respectively. Moving on to other regions, Daejeon and Jeju make it to 8 degrees while Dokdo tops out at 2. Well, that's all I have for you this hour, but I'll be back with more updates after 10.
Well, that's all the news we're following at this hour. I'm Jin-joo in Seoul. Thanks for watching.